Chapter 3, Part 2, Constitution and Legislative Sources. 2 learning objectives for this part. Describe in detail the nature and structure of the statutory sources of the tax law, including the Constitution, tax treaties, and the Internal Revenue Code. Consider how statutory tax law is created and how tax research resources are generated in this process. Let's take a look at the 3 sources of federal tax law. Chapter 3 covers statutory, the U.S. Constitution, tax treaties, and the Internal Revenue Code. As we move to Chapter 4, we'll look at the administrative sources, and Chapter 5 covers the judicial sources. Let's look at the history of the U.S. taxation, and I'll let you read this from the screen. And notice in 1895 we had a Supreme Court ruling, and of course we'll cover that in Chapter 5 with the judicial sources. As we move on to 1909 and 1913, you can read about the history. So let's look at the U.S. Constitution. This is the source for all federal tax law. Estate and gift taxes are excise taxes on the transfer of property. Congress can impose import taxes but not export taxes. And then 3 items regarding the income taxes. The rights of due process and privacy apply. Income taxes must be applied uniformly to citizens of all states. And the constitutionality of income taxes is upheld by courts. Now we move to tax treaties. Primary purpose is to eliminate double taxation. The weight of authority. A treaty has equal weight as in Internal Revenue Code Section 7852. If there's a conflict between a treaty and the Internal Revenue Code, the one enacted later prevails. Courts may attempt to give effect to both to resolve the conflict. Non-tax treaties often address tax issues. And per Article 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, the President is allowed to create treaties with advice and consent of the Senate. More on tax treaties. Common issues addressed in tax treaties. How business and investment income is treated when foreign persons subject to the host country's tax law. Methods to offset double taxation or income of assets. How host country computes taxable income for a foreigner. How host countries' withholding taxes apply to a foreigner. Taxes levied by states or provinces on foreigners. Disclosure requirements apply to all foreigners. So there will be tax treaties in the United States, and there will be foreigners, and then U.S. citizens will be in other countries. There will be tax treaties, and the U.S. citizens will be the foreigners. Let's look at the legislative process. Moving from the House Ways and Means Committee, voted by the House, then the Senate Finance Committee, voted by the Senate, then a joint conference committee reconciles any differences. The revised bill is revoted by the House and Senate. The House votes first, signed by the President, and then incorporated into the Internal Revenue Code. And this is a reason that we must stay current with changes that are coming through different types of bills going through the Congress. Now work with the material. Practice by working the discussion questions 1 through 19 on pages 105 to 106, and then access the homework assignments via the Blackboard messages area.